Okay, picking this up again. What was I going to do? Surge? Kids shriek rank in my ears and then. Shunk. Hark! The edge of one of the descending blades sliced into my forehead. Alright, let's see if this legendary sword can smash through the ceiling. I jabbed the Lancer upward with all my might. It pinged hard off the countless blades flashing down from above, throwing me to the floor. There. I drove the sword into the floor with all my might. A shock ran through the room. Beams of light scattered from the blade, covering the floor and walls, and then racing upward. The ceiling gave an almighty judder, then stopped. We made it. I sank to the floor helplessly, my heart racing. Hey, what's that? Kid was pointing at part of the wall. It was where we'd seen the message written in blood. Guess we found what we were looking for. Part of the wall had collapsed, revealing a cavity behind what had looked like a piece of solid stone. Inside, I could see something glinting faintly in the darkness. Kid reached in with her fingertips, carefully extracting whatever it was from within. It was a slender ring with a delicately engraved design that looked like overlapping ferns. The ring was adorned with several small rubies in a pattern that resembled a bunch of grapes. The crest of acacia, this must be an acacian signet. Kate put the ring on her middle finger where it sat uneasily. It didn't seem to be her size. The rubies gave off an eerie glint. Right, let's not spend any more time in here than we have to. We'd managed to foil the trap and retrieve the acacian signet. I left the Anlonzer where it stood, and we exited the room. We'd managed to foil the trap and retrieve the acacian signet. I left the Anlonzer where it stood, and we exited the room. All right, fast travel now. This place again. I hoped this was the last time I'd have to come here. Wrong button. Having retrieved the occasion signet, we returned to the old man's cell. As soon as we got there, Nigel took a step forward and grabbed onto the bars. They creaked and groaned. He heaved at them, gritting his teeth as he summoned the ounce of his might. Slowly they bowed apart. Wait, since when was Madville buff? Surprise, surprise. He stepped into the cell through the gap, and Kid and I followed. The old man was exactly as we had left him, staring into space and muttering meaningless words. Kid walked over to him and crouched down. She grabbed him by the collar and yelled at him. Yes, that is grammatically wrong. She grabbed him by the collar and yelled at him. Wakey, wakey, Granddad. We've got a few questions for ya. Here, get an eyeful of this. Ring any bells, Kid waved the occasion signet in his face, shaking him roughly all the while. The old man's head lolled as he limply allowed himself to be manhandled. I tried to get between Kid and the old man. She glared at me. You're in the way, sir. We're here for answers, remember. But you really want to help him. You can't chicken out now. But look at him. There's no helping anymore, surely. This all ended for him long ago. I would not be so certain. This is not over. It still means something. He simply decided to pretend not to see it. Here, but he's. It's not over, you say? Struck by the man's sudden interruption, we all turned to look at him. A faint glimmer of light had returned to his once vacant eyes. That's right. None of this is over until we make Lynx pay. His eyes began to cloud once more. So my 4 real eyes have finally come from far. I am to blame it is because of my indiscretion that the frozen flame was stolen, and that all of the Acacian dragoons. Only I remain here in the manor. But now all is well, for you have returned. Oh, Malgid, Surrender, where have you been all this time? Did you all return to Lake Stoic? I wonder. So in Chrono Cross. The dragoons are Karsh, Zil, Marcy, and then Radius. This guy resembles Radius. Saranda seems like a mashup of two names. And Melgid seems like a mashup of two names. And then you had Glenn, Dario, and Gary. So my assumption here is that the Gray and Radius storyline with the Masamune was based directly on this part of Radical Dreamers. Basically, Zorandanda Dairy. The wiki has no info on the other Haim. Nay. Never mind, Ola, Granddad. Where the frozen flame. Give us a clue. Anything. Come on out with it. I couldn't decide if Kid sounded more annoyed or more desperate. The frozen flame. The old man looked momentarily confused. And then a wan smile crossed his face. My word, Lady Rydell, it has been far too long since last I had the pleasure. Why, you need only turn the third candlestick from the left as you enter the main hall. That will open the underground vault, as you know. Oh, hey, another puzzle that made it into Chrono Cross. Kid wrapped her arms around the old man and held him tight. And then, in a trembling voice, she whispered, "I'm sorry, I promise we'll get it back." Yeah, get it? The man recoiled in horror and then began to sob once more. "I am to blame. It's all my fault. Forgive me. Forgive me." "Look, if you want to get out of here, now's your chance." But it was no use. He was too busy cowering and wailing to hear me. "We're done here, Sarge. We can't help him. And there's things we need to be doing." "Thank you," I whispered to the old man before following Kid and Magdal out of the dungeon. "Okay, fast travel." "All right." Kid pushed open the heavy door as quickly as she could and peered inside. "Looks like the coast is clear." We stepped into the main hall. Dozens of candles provided a dim, flickering light, sending the corners of the room dancing in and out of shadow. The great hall was filled with a heavy silence, a silence unbroken save for the ticking of a large clock that slowly counted the passage of time as if waiting for something. Several portraits glared down at us with cold eyes. We moved through the feeble glow of the candles. Third candlestick from the left, whispered Kid. 1, 2, 3. There. She reached out towards it. I held my breath as I watched. Say your prayers, Lynx. We're coming for ya. Kid turned the candlestick. The room trembled with a sudden rhythmic rumbling sound, as if a massive gear was earning. The room trembled with a sudden rhythmic rumbling sound, as if a massive gear was turning. What's that? For a moment, I felt a strange sensation, as if I was floating. Do you feel that? I started to stagger. The entire room seems to be moving downward, came the reply from Magil. I couldn't quite believe it, but I also couldn't deny the feeling of downward motion. I couldn't quite believe it, but I also couldn't deny the feeling of downward motion. The main hole was sinking into the earth. And then another rumble. The room's descent rapidly accelerated. A cold sweat dripped from my back. My heart filled with a mixture of fear and anticipation. What was waiting for us down there? The frozen flame. Our prize at the end of this little adventure. But what was it, really? Would it live up to our expectations? I tightened my fists, which were slick with sweat. What were Kit and Magil thinking? The room remained veiled in silence. There's another familiar tune. As if in response to my thoughts, a quiet voice came from next to me. Sometimes I. It was Kid. I looked over to see her standing stiffly, staring forward with her hands clenched into fists. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a losing battle, a fight I'll never win, no matter what I do. It was a side of her I'd never witnessed before. Even from this angle, I could see fear and doubt flickering across her face. I felt a tender sting in my heart. What are you fighting against? Good question. Fate, maybe. Life, even. Not sure I can put me finger on it exactly. It ain't Lynx. I mean, sure, I'm here to fight him, but that's different. It ain't clear cut like that. I feel like there's side of me one that's just sitting there, looking out at how empty and pointless. Everything I do is that's the best way I can describe it, anyhow. Care. Listen to me. Load of bloody nonsense, eh? She smiled ruefully. I was typing on the wrong window. See, in modern visual novels, you can at least scroll back on the text. I mean, that was no great revelation in and of itself, but hearing her say it out loud gave me a strange sense of relief. I stole. Another sidelong glance at her. Her expression was different, more mature, somehow. Sorry, mate. You didn't need to hear that. Not exactly me trademark brand of carefree banter, eh? She stuck out her tongue. Normal service had been resumed. Or so it seemed for a second. Thanks, Sarge. And you, Mag, she said, suddenly serious again. Couldn't have made it this far without y'all both. Listen, if we don't after this, I mean, if we don't get another chance to. Huh. Or you know what, forget it. She closed her eyes and forced a smile. I wasn't sure how to respond, so true to form, I just stared at her some more. I could have sworn I caught a flicker of a grin cross Magil's face, too. He was standing just at the edge of my field of vision, arms crossed and eyes closed. But maybe it was just my imagination. A contemplative silence descended as the hall continued its journey down into the bowels of the manor. A crash split the silence, as if we'd collided with something. Dirch! A loud metallic scraping filled the air. The room rocked and finally came to a half. The room rocked and finally came to a halt. Looks like the end of the line. All change. The swaying grandeur of the organ suddenly filled the air. Is it gonna play a boss music tune? No one had so much as touched it, and yet the keys and the pedals were moving by themselves. The melody it played was both unsettling and sad. Feral tune, is it? Way to greet your guests. Kid took a long stride forward, then turned to face me and Medville. Come on, let's go. So the save menu button is no longer working. Maggle and I gently nodded our assent. Kid grinned, then turned back to the door. I'm coming for y'all, Lynx. This is the end for you. And with that, she led us from the hall. We continued down the long, dark corridor, the walls slick with condensation. The air was thick and heavy, as though ripe with the stench of death. We're really getting close to Lynx's hidden vault at last. And was there any turning back now? For any of us? There was something strange about Kid that night. Magville didn't seem to be his usual self either. To begin with, it was vanishingly rare for him to speak so much, let alone to show any kind of emotion. What happened to make them change like that? Unable to take the silence anymore, I decided to speak. I had to ask the question that had been on my mind all this time. Does the frozen flame really gestate, Jewel? There was only silence in return. And then, when it seemed like no one would reply at all, Magville spoke. His low voice echoed in the corridor. It is a sacred stone that cures all ills, heals all wounds, and grants eternal life. Or so some still believe. In truth, it is part of a tremendous rock that fell from the skies long, long ago. What was it's part of Lavis in this game, too. That actually interesting. The rock was the source of a hitherto unknown power, with which mankind's hidden potential was unlocked. You could say that it was humanity's dreams made manifest. But it is not always good to have one's dreams come true. Okay, if you never played Chrono Trigger, you'd not get this reference. the kingdom of Zeal had all these people just laying in beds dreaming. And even on the greater storyline, it was implied that the entire thing could have been a bad dream of the planet itself. So I don't know how deeply this game was intended to connect to Chrono Trigger, but Avon and Chrono cross the details. That connected to don't even appear until like the middle of the game. See that. Many were bewitched by that great power, some were led astray by it. It even led to a kingdom's ruin, a kingdom once prosperous yet. Now little more than fragments, not dust, its name lost to history. That's Zeal. And the only person who could know about it is Magus from Chrono Trigger. Which is whom Magil is supposed to. For a moment, I thought I heard a hint of pain and sadness in Magil's voice. But maybe it was just me nerves. Wait, how do you know all this, Magil? He said nothing. He only stared at me with his piercing, dark eyes, and then continued onward in silence. For a while, only the sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor. And then Kid gave a doubtful hum. Look, I don't know if all that stuff about the frozen flame is true or not. Look, I don't know if all that stuff about the frozen flame is true or not. It's neither here nor there to me. She raised a fist. We're here to settle the score with Blinks by Nick and the Thing. That's all I know, and that's all I want to know. If you're wondering, I'm making all these faces. My clothing, chair, and headphones got all tangled up. So it was pulling on my shoulder. What had Lang seen in the frozen flame? Why had it been worth risking so much for? We trudged on down the dark passageway, each of us alone with our thoughts. Concentrating on my steps lessened the burden of my worry somewhat, and I felt a renewed vigor, to a degree. Suddenly, Magdal stopped in his tracks. Wait, huh? Kid turned around, puzzled. Just then, a powerful light surged across the floor and a ring shaped sigil appeared. Damn it, a blood circle. Kid and Mitchell were at least quick enough to try and jump clear. But they weren't quite quick enough. The three of us were trapped in a circle of blinding light. This is the only time we get a clear shot of them. I think. What was it? Three right, two left, two right. Or the other way. One set. Right thrice, left twice, right twice. The sigil rotated left and right with us at the center, cutting off all routes of escape. Gal, we're trapped. A wall of heat and wind blew up around us, and swirling lines and spirals of light assailed us wherever we turned. Don't let the light mesmerize you. Cover your eyes. Shouted Magil, raising a hand over his mask. Turn with the light not against it. There has to be a way out. What? I barely even understand what is going on. Kid's elbow brushed against the wall of light surrounding us, setting us flying. Be careful. Merely Tetoket is more than enough to harm you. Stay well back. I slowly turned my body to follow the movements of the ring of light, looking for a gap to escape through. 3 steps to the right. There! I see it. That's our way through. I found a gap in the wall of light and carefully walked through it. Kid Nigel, this way. We managed to get through the barrier unscathed. But we weren't out of the woods yet. There was still another wall of light swirling with a great wind in front of us. That puzzle was different, I guess. Suddenly my body felt light, and I staggered 2 or 3 steps forward. We were back into the passageway we'd been walking down before the blood circle had appeared. We were back into a deserted passageway we'd been walking down before the blood circle had appeared. We were back in the deserted passageway we'd been walking down before the blood circle had appeared. The sigil had vanished from the floor, and everything was silent, as if nothing had ever been amiss. And then I looked up. Looks like we finally made it, boys. Kid strolled up to the door with a wicked grin on her face. The true frozen flame awaits. Mantel's eyes gave a glint from behind his mask, like glass catching moonlight in the darkness of night. Let's go. Kid reached for the handle. So this is the place, huh? Kid narrowed her eyes, straining to see our surroundings in the darkness. A vast pitch black expanse surrounded us whichever we looked. It was as if we'd entered an impossibly cast cave. We were in a place forgotten by time, unknown to the world, hidden deep within the bowels of night. A gentle crimson light hovered in the darkness. The frozen flame. All right, now it's ours. The light of the flame ebbed and waned gently, as if responding to Kid's voice. What the heck is this place? There's mountains of bloody rubble everywhere. Magil took a step further into the room and said in a whisper that was almost a groan, "No, it can't be." One said, "Ah, but it is. The ruins of the lost kingdom of mages." The voice drifted down through the darkness from above. Kid looked up in shock. "Thanks, I'll kick your flea-bitten ash so hard he'll kiss the moon." Kid pulled her knife from her belt and threw it as hard as she could. It fell to the floor with a clang as if knocked out of the air by some unseen hand. Still the impetuous child as ever, I see. That's no way to greet an old friend. Smarmy bastard. Kid gritted her teeth with rage. And you, Shadow Dweller, I'll have none of your tricks this time. You must think me for a fool if you believe I'll fall for that again. Magil, who had been quietly slipping into the darkness that surrounded us, stopped dead in his tracks. So this was the infamous Ling. He doesn't look as much cat-like as I thought. Rather, this looks like the guy just has an evil mustache. The lord of this deadly mana. The man who had murdered the closest thing Kid had to a family, who had assassinated General Viper and eradicated the Order of the Acacia Dragoons. A pleasure, as always, my dear Kid. And I must say you follow the trail of breadcrumbs I lead for you admirably closely, my greedy little sneak thief. What's the bloody? She stepped forward, bristling. Lynx narrowed his eyes as his lips twisted into a snarl. You know I want, kid. Give me the stone you carry. The stone. Did Kid have some kind of jewel I didn't know about? Kid? To know what you're on about, mate. She just about managed to recover her composure, narrowing her eyes scornfully at her old foe. Spare me the act, child. I know that you have it. I know she gave it to you. Hand over the time egg. Now. Okay, this is literally something we didn't even learn about until like the end of my playthrough of Chrono Cross. So if all these details were already said, that kind of makes me wonder the expanded storyline Chrono Cross actually has. It's pretty clear that the common story threads mostly link the beginning of Chrono Cross. When you first raid the manor, so if I had to draw the connections on a paper, or a heavy silver red string whiteboard, I'd say that they tried really hard to get every single detail from the game into Chrono Cross except for the random monsters and the mana. There are, of course, different fights in the mana. But several things have been explicitly put into Chrono Cross that were not directly story from this game, but simply puzzle. Like the Blantic Death Chamber. That isn't actually in Chrono Cross, but there still is a torture chamber. And the Masamune and Einlanzer are both in it. And both connected to Radius, who is also in it. The what? Whatever it was, I'd never heard of it. You're dreaming if you think I'll give it to the likes of you, Kid shot back. You know, it's kind of funny how in Chrono Cross, she's more clearly given an Australian accent, but here it seems like she has a mix of Barrett. And maybe the localization just was handled by more than one person. Everyone had a different idea of what a potty mouth sounds like. So maybe they all thought she was supposed to sound like a pirate with some Irish and Australian thrown in. At any rate, the accents just make typing her dialogue a bit more frustrating. It's all I have left of her. I'll never let go of it, not for anyone, and definitely not for you. I'll tell you what gonna happen, you bastard. First, I'm gonna take the frozen flame, and then I'm gonna ram it down your throat. Incorrigible young fool. I was hoping this might be a civilized exchange. Alas, it seems my words will only fall on deaf ears, and you're determined to repeat your past errors. Lynx moved his hand to the grip of the ornate golden saber that hung from his belt. Last time I showed you mercy and let you leave with your life. That was a mistake, one which I mean to correct. Search Marshal, stay back. Kid took a step forward, glaring at Lynx, her gaze unflinching. This ends here and now. You'll pay for what you've done. You'll pay for what you did to Loka. Finally, a name drop. With a scream, Kid leapt into the air like a bird taking flight. Her foot lashed out in a scything kick aimed right at the side of Lynx's head. But there was no contact. Where Lynx had been mere moments before, now there was only empty space. Kid landed, and Edna immediately launched herself back into the air, putting the full force of her momentum into another kick. This time, Lynx leaned back, letting Kid's foot swing past only a hair's breadth from his nose. And then it was Lynx's turn. He lashed out with his saber, carving an arc through the air in front of him. Kid was ready for him, however, and had already jumped back to a safe distance. The two glared at each other from mere footsteps apart. At least you teach decency to prepare a little better than last time, Lynx purred. A red line appeared on Kid's cheek, slowly coalescing into a drop of blood. Kid! In a flash, she launched herself into yet another attack. Lynx dodged to the side, then made to strike her with the hilt of his saber. Kid moved awkwardly to avoid the attack, losing her footing. And then Lynx was on her like a bird of prey before she could fully recover. There was a gasp and a cough as Lynx drove his knee into the pit of her stomach. Kid collapsed. A steady stream of red dripped from her lips. Will that be all, girl? Lynx gave Kid a merciless kick to the side, sending her flying. She landed on a pile of rubble, her body rolling, until she hit a large stone pillar. And there she lay, lifelessly still. Kid! Kid! I screamed her name as I charged toward Lynx. But Mega was there already. He flew through the darkness, a part of the shadows, before crashing down on Lynx like a bolt from the blue. Lynx jumped back, and countless threads of light flew from his fingertips toward Magel. Hmm. With a droning hum, the threads of light surrounded Magel, crossing over one another. They spread to form a lattice of light that gave off a blinding glare and trapped Mato where he stood. What is this? Magel staggered and groaned, attempting to shield his eyes with his hands. It is a simple enough spell, my shadowy friend, for those inclined to learn it, and one which, sadly for you, leaves no darkness in which to hide. Lynx leered at Magil with a venomous grin. You've been quite the thorn in my side. Oh, but too long enough to regret it. Magil struggled and groaned. I had to do something, Kid, and Magil needed me. But what was I going to do? Clearly, there is no right answer. Kid ran out over to where she lay. She was flat out, still collapsed where she had fallen, and blood still ran from her mouth. Kid, say something. I crouched down next to her, glancing at her face in a panic. She groaned, and then she began to stir, her face twisted with pain. A surge. It's okay, Kid, I'm here. How touching. All through, I would be more concerned about well-being if I were you. The voice came from behind me. It felt as if ice water had been poured down my neck. I jumped to my feet and turned around. Lynx was looking down at me with a cold, emotionless stare. Any friend of kids is certainly no friend of mine. Forgive me, but I cannot permit you to leave this place alive. This guy gives off Jafar vibes. Before I realized it, his hand had shot out toward me. His claw-like fingers clamped around my throat. I couldn't breathe. Tightening his grip, Lynx lifted me bodily until my feet were dangling in the air. I could feel his talons mercilessly digging deeper and deeper into my neck. Panic filled my mind. Look, kid, see your friend. See him suffer. This is your doing. This is your hand around his neck. Kit's breathing was ragged, and blood still dripped from her lips. Opening an eye, she gurgly raised her head. But she couldn't get up. She didn't have the strength. Surge. Give me the time egg. Do you even know what it is? I suspect not. Think of it as a concentrated pocket of space. With the front flame and the time egg in hand, one can bend the fabric of space and time and rewrite the past. There are errors that I mean to correct. Mistakes in the past that must be set right. Lynx's narrow, emotionless eyes return to my face. How long before he perishes, I wonder? I struggled to breathe but could only make choking sounds. Kid screamed my name. Decide. Will you watch the boy die or relent? Does his life mean nothing to you? It can't. She balled her hands into fists and dropped her gaze. My vision started to fade. And then I heard her voice as she struggled to speak through the pain. I'm sorry, Serge, but I swore. I swore I'd sacrifice anything to stop Lynx. Don't worry. Don't worry about. It was all I could do to force the words out past Lynx's icy grip. Nay. I was starting to black out. Was this really how it was going to end? Ah, for crying out loud, find you in here, have your damn rock. Lynx's grip on my throat loosened. Groaning with pain, Kid reached a shaky hand into her shirt. I knew you would come round in the end. Lynx threw my body to the ground, then walked over toward her. Just shut up and take it, you bastard. You know, in hostage negotiation, you're supposed to shoot the hostage right. In all serious business. When people pay to get their data back from a data leak. In most cases, the data leakers will leak it anyway, even if you pay up. So your best option is to just burn it down. If the passwords lead to change, everyone's passwords pronto. Make the data worthless. It's all you deserve. With all the strength she could still muster, Kid lashed out at Lynx with her right hand. Yeah. He leapt back in a desperate attempt to evade the blow. But it was too late. Its nails, sharp as a cat's claws, raked mercilessly into his face. Lynx roared with pain. He staggered, clutching his left eye. Blood oozed through the gas in his fingers. You wretched little chit of a girl. Lynx stood awkwardly, still clutching at the wound in his face. The fingers of his free hand arched into furious talons as he walked back toward Kid, who still lay on the ground. I will kill you all. He kicked her hard, concentrating all his wrath and venom into the blow. Kid gasped as all the wind was knocked out of her, yet more blood ran from her mouth as her body rolled across the floor. Kid ailed hoarsely, clutching my burning throat with one hand. Lynx turned his head slowly to look at me, one eye fixing on me coldly as it came into view. He took a step toward me. Yes, perhaps it would be better to start with you. My dead kid, rest assured that your friend's death will be a most elaborate and painful one. Yes, perhaps it would be better to start with you. My dear kid, rest assured that your friend's death will be a most elaborate and painful one. suffer, boy. I will put you through the same suffering as I did that Luca woman. You will truly know what it means to suffer, boy. I will put you through the same suffering as I did that Luca woman. Kate's body stirred with shock and horror. Her eyes slowly opened, fixing a length. They were wild eyes stained with the blood that poured from her brow. Gritting her teeth, she staggered to her feet. Lynx, Lynx. And then an explosion of light burst forth from the frozen flame. Oh, is it gonna Deus Ex Machina now? Another light began to form from somewhere near Kit's chest, resonating with the light from the frozen flame. The twin lights entwined, twirling slowly upward. And as it rose, the golden spiral spread. No, this can't be. Famous last words. Link stood motionless, transfixed by the spectacle. Was this the time Egg's power? Kid screamed as a raging blaze of light engulfed her. I'll never let you do it again. I'll never let you steal from me again. Bathed in the glow, her body shook. Blood-red tears dripped from her eyes as the took on a distant look. And then she collapsed to the ground as if all the life had gone out of her. I heard a voice. It was quiet and still, like the evening. It has come to pass. Kate is retracing her lost memories back through time, back to the Lost Kingdom. It was through her power that the kingdom fell, that it was swallowed in the all-encompassing vortex of time. In her grief, she wished to disappear her past, her future. She wanted it to all sink into the void. To be the lost in the sea-thin whirl of time. She despised what she had done. She closed herself off from all that she saw and heard and cursed her very existence. But the stone wished for her to live. The hands of her clock were rewound. Her memories unraveled. The stone gave her a chance to begin again. The stone had both the power and the will to bring all sea about. The stone had both the power and the will to bring all this about. Sinking through the sea of time, she drifted here, a mere babe, her memories a blank slate. The time egg shattered, its fragments raining down on the world, becoming shards of sorrow and a world. The world around us drifted into pieces. It swallowed us, engulfed us. We were consumed, locked into the void. And then, a girl's scream echoed in the darkness. That voice was that kid. It sounded just like. No, this is all wrong. The black vortex. It surrounds us. No, stop. Where am I? I have lost everything and now I can but wander. The world drifts and time is a blur, is only an endless, knowable swift. This is where time begins and ends. This is where all life finds peace. I see myself as a baby, crying next to my mother, an exhausted yet proud look upon her face. I see myself aged and wizened, waiting to succumb to death's embrace with a smile. I see countless incarnations of myself, walking time's intricate corridors as ghosts. This is a place where countless worlds overlap and then infinite dreams play out. If only I could rest here for eternity. If only I could free myself of all my burdens and sleep here in the sea of dreams. If only I could free myself of all my burdens and sleep here in this sea of dreams. If only I could free myself of all my burdens and sleep here in the sea of dreams. But I hear it calling, I hear the song. It's the music box. Kid? Kid, please. Can you hear me? Kid. Kid, say something. Kid, you've got to stay with me. Who's that? Who is calling me? Surge. Where am I? Kid. Kid. You're awake. I heard a song, it was beautiful. It was that song that Tluka loved. Kid closed her eyes, and her face glowed with a warm smile. I'll never forget that song. Makes me want to cry whenever I hear it. I'm just glad you're back. It felt like losing you like you were going somewhere far. I'm just glad you're back. It felt I was losing you like you were going somewhere far, far away. Before I knew it, I was humming Teach a Song for You. I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but I wrote it when I first started out as a musician. I knew you liked it, so I. Kid gave a gentle nod. It was ye. You were the one who called me back that was you calling me name. Thanks, Serge. It's okay. It's okay now. I'm back. Suddenly, she gasped with pain. Lynx's saber had plunged deep into her right shoulder. And towering over us was Lynx himself. I told you, kid. I told you it would kill you. She had no strength left to fight. What was I going to do? I can't believe this game is pulling the surprise I'm still here, Gambit. I threw myself over Kid's inert form. I had to protect her. Huh? You rushed needlessly to your grave, boy. Lynx glared coldly at me with his remaining eye. Alas, your time has come. He raised his saber high, preparing to strike. Enough of. Stunned, we look toward the intruder. You. There stood an old crone, her weazened features obscured by a heavy hood. Oyui. Oyui. Uh, oh yes. Oh yeah, the old lady that was in the storage room. How had she made it all the way down here? Lady Vera. And what have we done to bring poor Magister General running, I wonder? He growled. It's been far too long, Lord Lynx. A pity that I seem not to have caught you at your best. The crone met Lynx's mad stare head on. I'll be right back. Clearly, we're in for yet another dozen pages of fight.